Welcome to the City of Bakersfield Planning Commission meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, Chair Daniel Cater.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to call to order the November 7th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cater.
Here.
Commissioner Komen.
Here.
Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Bowers.
Here.
Commissioner Lomas.
Here.
Commissioner Rudnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wade.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for attending tonight's Planning Commission meeting. This commission provides an opportunity for public participation in the development process throughout the City of Bakersfield. The Planning Commission considers a wide variety of projects, including subdivision maps, zone changes, general plan amendments, and much more. When applications are received, the City Planning Division analyzes the request. Planning staff will present the facts about the project along with their recommendation to the Commission, who will approve the item or make a recommendation as appropriate. Our goal is to carefully consider each project and make a decision that will balance individual rights and public welfare with the general well-being of our community. We will now receive public statements. This time is reserved for anyone wishing to speak to the Commission on any matter not on the public hearing portion of the agenda. Please note if you are here for item 5A through 5C, this is not the time to speak. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the Commission? If so, please come forward and state your name.
My name is Professor Stephen Holmes from Bakersfield College. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for entertaining my students for the last 25 years. And it's glad that I could be with you today. I'm here to talk to you about Municipal Code 16.16.060, which deals with public hearings. And in particular, I'd like to address the code that requires notification of households within a 300-foot of a new development. That is a minimum standard for the state. I currently live 317 feet from a consent item today, which I do plan to address later with you. It's hard for me to believe that 5 yards will make no difference in this development. So I'm asking you to consider making actually a municipal code change tonight and to look into what would be a more acceptable notification beyond 100 yards. And if you do choose to keep it at 100 yards or 300 feet, maybe make an internal policy to go slightly beyond that so you do reach minimum standards. Later tonight, I'm going to question whether or not you legally did proper notify us. Based on the sheets that are available, it's often very difficult to determine where exactly that property line starts and therefore where the 300 feet actually ends. So a good policy might just be to meet the standards of 300 feet, but choose to notify households 400 or 500 feet beyond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I will note that due to public notice requirements of the Brown Act, the Commission cannot take action on the agenda item, but your comments are heard, and staff, I would ask that you look into the public request and present at an upcoming Commission meeting. And I think more specifically, kind of the history behind the 300-foot noticing and perhaps if there's alternate distances in other municipalities. Thank you. And thank you for your public comments. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Commission on an item not on the consent calendar or the public hearing portion of the agenda? All right, seeing no others, we will now move on to consent calendar non-public hearing items. These agenda items typically involve housekeeping or administrative matters that do not require a public hearing. Does any commissioner wish to remove a consent calendar non-public hearing item for separate consideration? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the consent calendar non-public hearing items?
I'll make a motion to approve item 4A, consent calendar, non-public hearing items, specifically the approval of the minutes from October 17, 2019 regular meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Komen. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Bowers. Commissioners, please cast your votes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to consent calendar public hearing items. The next agenda section includes public hearing items that are considered routine or non-controversial. These items have been reviewed by staff and are conditioned in accordance with the requirements of the municipal code. The planning director will read each item on the consent calendar to ensure the public has an understanding of the items to be considered. If you would like to speak on an item, please come forward after the items are read and ask that that item be removed for discussion. If the item is not removed by a member of the public or a commissioner, the commission will vote on all items in one motion without further comment. Mr. Coyle, will you please read the items on the consent calendar this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we have 3 items on tonight's agenda. Project 5A is an extension of time for vesting tentative tract map 6465, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this project on a total of 117.63 acres, consisting of 174 single-family residential lots, 3 multiple-family lots, 1 lot for office development, 1 lot for commercial development, 2 lots containing existing drill sites, and 1 lot for a park or staging area. Project is generally located on the south side of Alfred Harrell Highway on both the east and west sides of Lake Ming Road. Project 5B is an extension of time for vesting tentative tract map 6616, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this project, which consists of 347 single-family lots on 80.09 acres south of McCutcheon Road, about a quarter mile west of Gosford Road. And finally, Project 5C is an extension of time for vesting tentative tract map 7252, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this project, which consists of 50 multifamily lots, 1 sump lot, and 1 drill island, located at the southeast corner of 7th Standard Road and Shane Street. This concludes my reading of this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. At this time, I will open all of the consent calendar public hearing items. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on a consent calendar public hearing item? Again, this is not the time to take testimony, just request that it be moved to the public hearing portion.
5A,
Oh, you state your name, please?
Stephen Holmes.
Thank you. And item,
5A.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the audience wishing to speak on a consent calendar item? Does any commissioner wish to remove an item for further discussion? Seeing no additional items, at this time, the public hearing on consent calendar items 5B and 5C are now closed, with item 5A moving to the public hearing portion of the agenda. May I get a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the consent calendar public hearing items 5B and 5C, incorporating all staff memorandum and revised staff recommendations?
I'll move we incorporate 5B and 5C.
Thank you, Commissioner Rudnick. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wade. Commissioners, please cast your votes.
Motion passes.
We will now move on to the public hearing portion of the agenda. We have one item moved from the consent calendar, item 5A. Before we begin, let me just explain how the public hearing will be conducted this evening. Staff will first give a more in-depth report on the item. Then those in favor of the project will have an opportunity to speak. Those in opposition to the project will be able to speak after all those in favor have spoken. If we have speakers for and against the project, each side will be given a 5-minute rebuttal period to provide rebuttal comments to the previous speaker's comments. Individual speakers may ask questions during their statements, but the questions will not be answered until the public hearing on the item is closed. If you'd prefer, written comments may be provided to the clerk, who will provide copies to the commission. Please be respectful of others participating in the hearing by not repeating remarks of previous speakers and presenting any new comments in a clear and concise way. Mr. Coyle, would you please provide us your staff report on item 5A?
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we're here this evening to consider vesting tentative tract map 6465, an extension of time. DeWalt Corporation, representing the property owner, Sarah Brisa Development, LLC. This tentative tract map contains a total of 117.63 acres, consisting of 83 single-family residential lots on 15.55 acres, zoned R1, single-family residential. 91 single-family residential lots on 21.55 acres, zoned R1 HD, which is one family dwelling on a hillside development combining zone. 3 multiple family lots on 14.47 acres, zoned R2, which is limited multifamily dwelling. 1 lot on 8.02 acres for office development, zoned commercial office. 1 lot on 2.74 acres for commercial development, zoned regional commercial. 2 lots zoned single-family dwelling and hillside development, which contain existing drill sites, and 1 lot for a park or staging area on 2.55 acres zoned open space. The project is located south of Alfred Harrell Highway on both the east and west sides of Lake Ming Road in northeast Bakersfield. The applicant is requesting a 3-year extension for additional time due to the real estate financial slowdown. No phase of this map has been recorded. In response to the economic downturn and the recession, the California State Legislature approved a series of automatic extensions to certain approved tentative subdivision maps. This tentative map received all extensions as applicable, resulting in an expiration date of November 14, 2019. Staff has received a few public contacts for this project from residents in the Cattle King Estates development, requesting information related to the type of development proposed for the project site. Staff recommends approval of a 3-year extension of time to expire on November 14, 2022, with no changes to previously approved conditions of approval. This concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. The public hearing on this item is open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Todd Wood. I'm the engineering director at DeWalt Corporation, representing the client. Tonight, we appreciate staff's work on the project, and we would encourage the commission to proceed with approving the extension of time for this project. As Mr. Coyle indicated, the economic downturns over the last few years have necessitated the project being on hold. The clients are looking at potentially reactivating this project over the next couple of years, and we'd like the opportunity to continue that project. If there's any questions, I will be available. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the project? Seeing no additional speakers in favor, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
My name is Stephen Holmes. I am a owner of a home in Cattle King Estates. I am also the president of the Cattle King Estates Homeowners Association. Being from Kern County, I've always was told that, oh shoot, I forgot my joke. And I saved it just for Michael and Patrick too. If you drill for more than 20 minutes, stop boring. There you go. So I'm hoping not to take 20 minutes of your time today. I'll try to cut to the chase. I'm speaking primarily as a homeowner, but I want to start out as president of Cattle King Estates. We were not notified as an association, and we did contact legal counsel today. And according to legal counsel, if the common areas of the association fall within the 300 feet limitation, we are to be notified. So I want to make that on record. The association was not, and that is what has been told. So for that reason, one, I'm asking you to proceed cautiously if you choose to pass this extension. As a homeowner, I'm here to ask you not to pass the extension. And I have a couple reasons why I think you should not pass this extension. The first reason you should not pass this extension is because it's on the premise of a real estate financial slowdown. I provided to you today a graph that actually shows the median price of a house in Bakersfield from the last time this extension was issued. In fact, it goes back slightly more than that 2015. It goes all the way back to, you can see, October 14. And as you can see, the value of the home in the city of Bakersfield, of which this property lies, has not slowed. It hasn't slowed one bit. The market has been quite steady over the last 4 years. So the premise in itself is false. Looking further into this, in terms of the financial slowdown, the market bottomed in Bakersfield in April of '09, where the average household medium household price only was $115,000. Today, it's $260,000. That's not a slowdown. Absolutely not. And I'll let you do your math on yourself to figure out what that rate of increase is over the last decade. The second reason that I don't think that you should accept this extension pertains to the exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act. Your resolution states, no new environmental impacts have been identified. And then it further goes on to say that you're going to rely upon an environmental review conducted in October of 2004. 15 years ago is insufficient. As you may know, there are actually exemptions, there are exceptions to exemptions. And I'd like to note two of those. The first refers to a cumulative impact. In regard to the cumulative impact, you don't look at the project itself, but you look at the projects that have occurred around it and what impact as a whole they may have. So what projects have been passed since 2004 and the environmental impact? Well, we have Tuscany still being built. We have Sienna still being built. We have Lakeview being built. And just about 3 months ago, we did another extension on the northeast corner of very large properties. So what is the cumulative impact regarding all of these together? I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And if you choose to go forward with this extension, then undoubtedly a new environmental impact report should be conducted. Now, the second one that I'm going to talk to you about is based on location. And this is a little trickier one, and you know, I might be pushing my luck a little bit on this exception, but having valley fever, which I'm 100% positive I acquired from the land that was moved at Lakeview Estates approximately 10 years ago. The location exception says that locations-based exceptions apply where a project may impact on an environmental resource of hazardous or critical concern. Valley fever is a critical concern to me, personally. And I can tell you that just in our community alone, of which we are about 60 households, we had 5 cases of valley fever when they broke the ground across the street. Now, I've heard, and I know of one personally up in Tuscany, but I've heard there were many more there as well. Today, there are many more households around this area. And to move forward with developing this land and subjecting the households and their families to the potential valley fever virus is of critical concern. So if, again, you choose to move forward, which I'm not suggesting you do, additional conditions definitely need to be placed upon literally the dirt moving and the dust control. Last but not least, I do have some concerns regarding what have we done over the last 15 years. I'm not too sure what conditions were placed on this tentative track map in 2007. So unfortunately, I was not notified, and therefore I'm working off of about 72 hours in my presentation. But I would like to know what conditions were placed upon this track. In regards to those conditions, which have actually been done. And I would like to see a list and when they were done. Because to my knowledge, none of that land has been touched. No improvements, and we have sat waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's time to simply put an end to this development. Or make them reapply and go through an environmental impact report that's going to ensure that there's no cumulative effect and no concern for our health. And then last but not least, I have been told that the city has recently passed some new standards regarding development. Standards like maybe wider streets, sidewalks, lighting, and these conditions should apply to any new development if we move forward. And really, the only way you can do that is to deny this project and allow them to reapply when they are serious about developing it. I want to thank you for your time. And again, I want to thank you all for entertaining my students over the years. I came today because I had to give them something to write about. Your meetings have been a little short, you know, and that sometimes gets a little boring on my side. But thank you again.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? Seeing no other audience member wishing to speak in opposition, before we move to the rebuttal period, does any commissioner have questions for the public on this item or city staff? Please remember that this is a time to not a time to express opinions, just ask questions. Commissioner Wade.
This is a question for staff. If I'd like to confirm something that Mr. Holmes said about the noticing and the common area of Cattle King. And because if there's a problem with that, then that stops anything from going forward with us today. So can we address that issue first, please?
I can, and I'm going to move over there so I can show this exhibit that was just handed to me to explain in more detail. So
Thank you.
bear with me a second. Zoom down on that, do you know, Daniel? So that red outline is the 300-foot radius around the exterior boundary of this extension of time. And as you can see, it touches kind of the back side of residences for Cattle King. It doesn't cover any common areas that they were able to see, so there was no separate requirement to notice any HOAs or the owner of the common areas. I'll leave that up to.
An address regarding this?
Please. Yep. I concur, Commissioner Bell. Yeah. Please. All right.
Again, this gets down to where exactly the lines are, and again, on short notice here. There are easements behind each of those homes, and according to our association, all easements are dedicated to the association as common area. So in regards to his map, where all that backs up to the fence lines, easements dedicated through our CC&Rs and bylaws to the association. Now, just in particular, by the way, I happen to live on the lot that is just adjacent. Just to give you a general idea, you can't really see. Actually, I think it says Express. So where that E in the Express is, that is my lot. And as I measured, I'm at 317. So the reality of it is, and again, not knowing exactly where we want to start here, but if I'm at 317, and our roadways, by the way, tend to be wider than 17 feet. The other common area in our association are the streets. And since I'm at 317 on my curb, if I come back across the street to my neighbors, I'm within 300 feet. But again, and this goes back to my original public comment, it would be nice if you created a policy to ensure that these types of issues don't emerge by extending your notification beyond that is required by the state. You know, if this was a notification of 400, 500, what you choose, you've duly met your 300 feet minimum. And we're not sitting here arguing over, where the line starts and where it doesn't to a general public who's not going out there with their compass to figure out where the border lines really lie. Thank you.
Would you like me to address the easement
Please,
question?
Mr. Aguirre. Yes.
So the ordinance requires that we notify property owners. Easement holders are not property owners. The underlying property owner was noticed, is my information.
Commissioner Wade.
I used to live out here as a kid, not in Cattle King, but across the way.
Please remember this is the time to ask questions.
Sure.
Okay.
I haven't stated an opinion yet.
It sounded
I
a
haven't
little
stated
bit.
an opinion. Yeah.
Please proceed.
I have nothing to say. I couldn't formulate.
It sounded a little sentimental. I was concerned. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other commissioner questions? Oh, Commissioner. You can.
Yeah,
Commissioner Cohen.
yeah. Can we get back to the other question that he had regarding what conditions were applied to this project? And also, while you're at it, does The new ordinances that we pass for sidewalk, street improvements and that kind of thing, do they apply when they apply for building permit? Or does it apply for this, not apply because it was approved back then?
On that question, Commissioner, the new standards would apply to the public streets. And for the lighting, we would, that would be effective on the private streets.
It comes into play once they file for building permits and that kind of thing. They're not part of the tentative map approval
Well,
process.
if it was extended, it would be under the old standards. If it does not get extended and it becomes a new application, then the new standards would apply.
And then what about the question regarding what conditions were applied to this tentative map back in, when it was originally approved? Does anybody know the answer to that?
I don't know if we have them with us here. We would have to, or you do have them here?
Yeah.
So we have the conditions. I don't know if you want, we can recess and go over them with the audience and provide them to people. It's trying to figure out a way to streamline, unless you just want Jim to read 20 pages worth of conditions.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we can just.
14.
We can just
14 pages.
Is that a document that can be made public?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm saying
yes.
if we want to take a quick break and make copies, we can provide that to the audience members that want one.
Yeah, that'd be fine with a 5-minute break. Copies available. All right, we'll reconvene at 6:05. reconvene. Have copies been provided?
She's making copies now, if you want to wait a couple more minutes. We can go on and then provide the copies as we're
We
going.
can keep going and hand them out as we're going. Commissioner Rudnick is very eager to ask questions and not state opinions, so without further ado, Commissioner Rudnick.
I'm being picked on already. I actually asked my fellow commissioners and got my question answered, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other commissioner questions? Are there any other commissioner conversations?
Question. This is a technical question.
Commissioner Coleman.
I'm sorry. You talk about on this is a park or staging area. I've never heard that term before. What's a staging area? Well, part of the project includes a park or staging area, and I'm not sure what that was about.
It says park/staging area. Staging areas, I'm aware of, are usually set aside
For future
during,
park.
during construction
Okay.
also.
Yeah, but does that mean it may never become a park or what? I just don't get it. I never heard that term used in this before. I've heard, park lot, but I never heard /staging.
I would imagine it would be developed as a park since
Uh-huh.
it's open space zoning.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no additional commissioner questions, we will now move into a period of rebuttal. Again, this is a time for speakers in favor and opposing the project to provide 5-minute total time comments to those comments that we heard in the original public participation. Please be respectful of others speaking. This is a 5-minute total time for all speakers, so please be succinct and respectful of others' times. As we just heard from the opposition, we will begin with those in favor of the project. So, Madam Clerk, if you could put 5 minutes on. Is there anyone in favor of the project wishing to provide rebuttal comments?
Good evening, Todd Wood again with DeWalt Corporation. To answer the last question on the park staging area, there's a trail network associated with the open space and the hillside there. So that staging area park is going to be connected to the trail system to where residents and people in the area could park there and utilize the trails, the bike trails. As far as, I'm not a CEQA expert, I'm a civil engineer, but when the project was originally approved, the GPA zone change, there was a mitigated negative declaration done. There were studies, air quality, biota, paleontological, cultural resources, traffic studies. So during the CEQA review initially of this back in the day, and it has been quite some time, those studies are consistent with the studies that would be done today as well. CEQA does have some new legislation that would look at cumulative impacts as well, but that's kind of I don't think that's even really what the discussion is about tonight. This project did go through all the proper environmental reviews at the time, and we're just asking to have an extension of time to be able to further progress this project. There have been no civil engineering drawings produced to be able to submit to staff as of today. When we do, we will be designing this according to current standards. So that's something that we do with all of our projects. There's quite a few projects that we take on, just like this one, that are aged and had been laid out previously to the old standards. The new standards today aren't a lot different from what the standards were in the past, but we do, I believe just a few days ago, Public Works issued updated standards, so we're already incorporating those into our current drawings for other projects that we're doing. I know there were quite a few other issues brought up that I don't think apply to a civil engineer's perspective on notifying, so I'm not going to address any of those. I just would appreciate the commission to understand that all of the conditions of approval, all 14 pages worth, we're aware of those, the client's aware of those, and we will fully comply with those conditions. I am available if you all have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other, we have 2 minutes and 20 seconds left for those in favor of the project. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no other speakers, we'll stop the clock on those in favor and move to provide 5 minutes of rebuttal time for those in opposition to the project. Again, this is a 5-minute total time, so please be respectful and succinct and allow all speakers a chance to speak. So
Before the speaker comes up, do you want me to explain how the conditions work? So that way while he's maybe thinking about his thoughts, I can give him some more information. If that,
sure.
if
Prior
that
to starting
helps.
the-
Lot to consume here in less than 5 minutes, just so you know.
So just
Okay.
how conditions of approval work is before they record their map, they'll have to complete those. And so since they're just at the extension time right now, that would explain why none of that's been done, because unless they're actually getting close to recording it, they don't need to complete any of those conditions of approval, if that at least gives you an explanation of what those are.
Thank you, Mr. Egger. Understanding that it is a 17-page document, but we do need to keep the hearing moving, so we can provide opposition comments.
So just for my general knowledge on this, all the conditions in here are not valid until they record their final map.
Not that they're not valid, they won't have to complete them until they record the map.
Until they-
That's a
Okay.
condition for them to be able to record
So
the
there's
map.
no preconditioned in terms of establishing.
Like they have to start doing it
Okay.
now, no.
Because that answered that question. So then my next question is, I guess, it's my understanding that when a tentative map has been filed, and this was originally in 2007, most maps have to be finalized within 2 years.
That's the lifespan of the map, yes. And then there were a lot of state granted exemptions or extensions, and then those expired in
And the
17.
last extension was in 15 or 17?
15.
And we are in 19.
Was it 15 or 17? I don't have it in front of me.
So, Mr. Egger, this is maybe not traditional, but we're kind of asking questions and in the rebuttal period, so can we pause and just to make sure that the questions are answered and those in opposition are given an opportunity to speak in the small amount of time they're allotted?
It's the chair's discretion.
Okay, let's pause the clock let's restart the clock, because I think it's been pretty much questions to this point. And I think while we're talking it through process, I think Mr. Coyle, you might be the best to speak to this. Could you explain kind of the extensions of track maps relative to the economic downturn and where we find ourselves this evening looking at a 2004 track map briefly?
Well, I would draw your attention to the staff report where this has been memorialized. There have been 5 times where the state legislature has granted blanket extensions. And as applied to this particular project, in 2008, Senate Bill 1185 granted a 1-year extension. In 2009, Assembly Bill 333 granted 2 years. In 2011, AB 208 added another 2 years. In 2013, AB 116 added another 2 years. And the last one that applies to this project is AB 1303 in 2015, which added another 2 years. So the state legislature has granted 9 years worth of extensions. On top of that, City Council's policy is the city can grant up to 2 3-year extensions. This particular ask is the first request for one of those 3-year extensions.
My numbers aren't adding up, but I'm going to go back and add them up. I want to verify something on that he just said as well. It is also my understanding that maps have a maximum lifetime of 15 years. 10 of those years are automatic extensions, and 5 pertain to, I guess we'd call them maybe statutory extensions. Somebody might correct me on that term there. So if I'm doing my math correctly, if this tentative vested map is approved and you give it 3 years, it will have maxed out its life at the end of this period of time. Just make sure that I'm correct on this.
So our understanding is that the automatic extensions of the map do not count against that maximum 15 years because they were to, I said, protect some of the economic downturn.
Thank you. And I think I might ask the speaker, because we're kind of going back and forth between comments and questions. Are you satisfied with any other additional staff questions to where
Well,
we're moving?
I'm still doing the math on this. If, you know, we're at 2008 and they're getting their first extension of 1 year, and they've given 9 automatic years. 08 to, that would put you at 17. We're in 19. And I don't see anything that's giving a 3-year extension. Maybe because there's some overlapping going on in this area, and that's where we're finding the additional time on these maps. And according to my information, the MAP Act for tentative maps filed after May 14th, 1996.
I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah?
So are we good to start the clock then on your? I just want to make sure that the appropriate information is being distributed in the appropriate time. Are you done asking staff questions and moving into a period of thoughts and comments on?
Well, one, I don't think the math is added up for the 9 years of extension. I'm not seeing that quite. I mean, the first extension came in 08. There were 9 years of extension. That would put it to 17. We're in October of 19. The last automatic extension was in 15. They're accumulating those together. I'm not too sure that that's what the automatic appeals meant, that we got to add everything up as we went along. So I'd like some verification on that, because what you're telling me is that they came through and they said, okay, you get 1 year here, now you get a 2 more year here, and you get a 2 more, and you get to keep adding those up so you can end up with an automatically, 10 years. Is that really what the legislation's meaning, or is it just saying those that were still coming up in those years are getting a 2-year automatic adoption or extension? So I think there's clarity that needs to be there. And then my document simply says that for tentative maps filed after May 14th, 1996, the MAP Act permits a maximum life of 15 years, 5 years of discretionary extensions, not statutory, my mistake, and 10 years of automatic extensions for phased final maps. So if you're going to approve this, I want it in the records that we've reached at the end of this extension the maximum life of this plan. And I hold true to the fact that they've done nothing since their last extension, when in fact there is no premise to say that we are in a slowdown of real estate. In our neighborhood alone, we've sold 3 houses in the last 6 months. They're not staying on the market. I sold my mother-in-law's house across the street. We sold in 14 days. So, I don't see the premise there. And I see a lack of effort. Say it's time to go back to the drawing board, reapply, do your environmental reports, meet the conditions of a new city standard, and move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, could you please? Oh, could you please state your name, and then we'd love to receive your comments. Thank you.
I am Empress Noen Taziki, a resident, raised here, in and out. Valley fever is the critical issue right now. I've had a child that almost died from it. I've almost died from it. And I think that he needs to go back through. I agree what this man is saying. I see it says staff approve, but you need to look at that. Our health is at risk from what it sounds like moving the dirt and the dust storm that just happened here. So I think you need to put some brakes on this.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any others wishing to speak in opposition to the project? In the remaining 2 minutes. Seeing no additional speakers, the rebuttal period is now closed. And
Close
I
the
will now
hearing.
close the public hearing and return the item to commission for comment and action. Commissioner Wade.
What I was about to say before I realized I couldn't give an opinion was that I spent some years out in this area, and there's a lot of new development, but in general, it's still pretty rural. Cattle King is the largest concentration of homes in the immediate area, and it just seems, I understand that maybe 300 feet makes sense in a more urban setting. I understand frustration from the neighborhood that the largest concentration of people right there don't get noticed. So it seems maybe it doesn't pass the common sense test. And I think that I would be in support of continuing this so that the neighborhood have a chance to address this.
Since
Mr.
the-
Iger, can you clarify that
Yeah.
since the map expires, we cannot actually defer it?
No, since the application is in and
Nope.
we are in the process of hearing it, we can defer it. We can continue it and come back and consider it if that's
You want a motion?
what the commission chooses.
Commissioner Wade, would you?
Sure. Make a motion to continue this to the next
Can we
scheduled meeting.
can we do the December 5th meeting instead of the next scheduled meeting? Because we have no current items for the 21st.
Yes, to December 5th.
I'll second.
All right. Was that Commissioner Bowers? Oh,
And as part of that motion, just to clarify, because a normal continuance would mean that we don't renotice, but are you asking us to notice the neighborhood?
I am.
yes, Commissioner Wade was motion, Commissioner Bowers second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. And, sorry, before we already voted, but
No.
it's not up yet.
Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to communications. Mr. Coyle?
The first thing I would like to do is I would like to recognize the new Department Director for Development Services, Mr. Christopher Boyle, and I would invite him to come up and say hello to the Planning Commission?
So many impromptu introductions, I must say. Thank you, Planning Director, Mr. Coyle. My name's Christopher Boyle. I am your new Development Services Director. I come to you after 12 years at the City of Madera. I've been here just shy of 2 weeks, and my experiences here lead me to say to you right now that I'm really excited about the future here working for the City of Bakersfield. I just feel like it's right fit for me, and I appreciate all your service as commissioners moving forward. Do you have any questions?
Have you been to Luigi's yet?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My second announcement is that, as we just heard, our next Planning Commission meeting will be Thursday, December 5th, 5:30 p.m. here in the chambers. So since we won't be meeting again before Thanksgiving, I would like to wish the Planning Commission and their families a very happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you. I will start commissioner comments by wishing staff and the audience also a happy Thanksgiving. And are there any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:27. Have a great evening. Thank you.